Henderson, Randolph, Mattingly. Clark in the cleanup spot. Washington, who had 3 hits last night, is back in center field today. Winfield, despite being the most productive hitter in the majors so far this year, remains in the 6th slot in the order. Aliarulo hits 7th. Slot, who's batting .381, and that's 2nd in the American League among those with enough at-bats to qualify. 2nd to Winfield. Slot will hit 8th, and Santana's the shortstop.
Perhaps as good a tandem through a good part of the 80s as there was in baseball. 1 and 2 starters, Jack Morris and Dan Petrie. Petrie didn't get a whole lot of respect because of Jack Morris, the winningest pitcher in the 80s. They tell me, Bob, his last time out, they had him on radar guns for whatever that means, 90 miles an hour consistently. That is unusual for him. He didn't throw that hard, I don't believe, before he had the elbow surgery. Good slider, curve, occasional change. He's been keeping the ball down well with that hard sinker.
He never threw the split finger for the Tigers as much as was publicized. Morris, of course, relied on it heavily. But for Petrie, it was just an occasional pitch. And he'll mix one in even now, but it's not part of his primary repertoire.
A defense that has not been very solid behind this pitching staff. They lead the American League in errors, and ironically, 11 of those errors have come by the outfielders. Davis and Ray have hurt them defensively, although Ray has really improved over the last week or so.
Adjusting, of course, from second base. Henderson fouls the first pitch back and out of play. Ricky's hitting .356. His 32 steals easily lead the major leagues. His 35 runs scored tops in the American League.
We've got a homegrown infield outfit there, don't we? Howell, Schofield, McLemore, and Joyner. They're hard to find.
Ricky drops a bunt. Petrie fields it nicely, but won't throw it out. Ricky won't advance as the throw got by Joyner.
Another way in which a Billy Martin tries to control a ball game with almost every pitch. He gives the sign for Ricky Henderson to steal. He gives a lot of signs early in the ball game. He doesn't believe in sacrifice bunts. He believes a lot in bunting to beat out for base hits early in the ball game to get something going. Jack Howell back a little bit off the line. Petrie just doesn't have any chance with Henderson's speed. We will have some fun now with Petrie there and Henderson on first, who leads the major leagues in steals.
32 steals, caught 8 times.
5 of those caught stealing have been by the pitchers, have picked him off, and they've gotten him in a rundown as he tried for second.
He's going on the first pitch. Boone up and throwing, and got him.
We are talking about unloading a baseball in a hurry. Pop Boone, was that something? The footwork was incredible. Billy will give the steal sign directly to a Henderson at first in this ballpark. He won't even flash it through Clete Boyer. Watch Booney. Right around 40 years old. It's right on the money. Ooh. Since he's been with the Angels, Boone has thrown out about 46 or 7% of potential base stealers, which is extraordinary. He came from Philadelphia. They said he couldn't throw anymore, but that was the pitching staff.
One and one the count now to Randolph. Mattingly on deck. No score, last half of the first at Yankee Stadium. Angels won here last night 5-4. Chopped foul. You know, you mentioned the homegrown infield of Howell, Schofield, McLemore, and Joyner. Despite the fact that the Angels are struggling, 14 and 21, last place in the West, 10.5 behind Oakland, they have some reason for optimism. They figure this infield can be the core of their ball club for the next 6-7 years, maybe more. And in Devon White, they have a future superstar in the outfield. Out of play. If they can build a pitching staff and find a catcher to succeed Boone, maybe in a few years they can be a contender.
Well, Cookie Doe's the nucleus of the starting staff. Looks like it could be a good one. Witt has begun to come back after struggling all the second half last year. Petrie from elbow surgery. McCaskill with a big year a couple of years ago, elbow surgery. A left-hander named Chuck Finley has a chance to be outstanding.
Fouled off again. Finley will pitch here tomorrow for the Angels. Yankees haven't decided on who they'll use.
You know, I think Billy might have been leaning toward Neil Allen until he came in and gave him a long and a real good relief effort last night. There's Chuck Finley, who throws hard and loves to finish ball games.
Off-speed pitch misses the outside edge. 2-2.
Willie's still playing with that little damaged wrist. Still struggling with it. His range has been cut with age and the knee surgery last year.
Full count to him.
Look at the Yankees, Bob, leading the league in runs, right there with home runs with Oakland. And you look at some of the averages. Paliarulo, Santana, Randolph, you wonder how sometimes.
Swung at a pitch out of the strike zone. Schofield at short, throws him out. Unusual for Willie, who has an exceptional eye and could have had ball 4 on that pitch. All right, here's Mattingly, who wore an 0 for 4 collar last night, which dipped him under 300 at 299. And remarkably, only 1 home run. He's experimented slightly with different stances, holding the bat at slightly different angles from at-bat to at-bat as he anticipates the pitch.
He has said his hands don't feel relaxed.
A check swing roller to Howell. Pegs over to Joyner, and that finishes the Yankees. Henderson led off with a bunt single. He was thrown out stealing, and on to the second we go. No score in the Bronx. It's Nipper versus Nepper under the dome, and Nip has the better of Nep so far. That's the only other game in progress as we move to the second inning here.
Let's see, the Cubs lost Calvin Schiraldi. Smashed off the knee. He's out of the Stables. He was just starting to pitch well, too, for Don Zimmer. Maddox has been exceptional for the Cubs.
You'll see one of these 2 games coming up next.
Number 21, Wally Joyner, first base. Number 21.
Joyner, Davis, and Armas in the second. Ball 1 from Tommy John. Tommy has won 23 times in his career. First time in 77 with the Dodgers, and then back-to-back for the Yankees in his first tour of duty with them in 79 and 80.
After he threw that pitch, you could see him stretch his arm and reach skyward with his hand. It was a little mental note to stay on top to make the ball sink better, like that.
Good play by Tommy John, and that takes care of Joyner.
Tommy John was in a little bit of hot water, mildly to speak, I guess, with Billy Martin. He gets on top of this sinker ball, and Wally tries to hit it up the middle, but hits it right back to TJ. During an off day, Tommy John struggling with his mechanics, went down to Tennessee. Paid his own expense, visit Mark Connors, University of Tennessee baseball coach. And they've got so darn many pitching coaches around. You don't know, Clyde King's been trying to help out watching films of Vergetti. You got Torberg in the bullpen. And the real one is Art Fowler. So there's always a mix here where you don't know where the info is coming from, and sometimes it can confuse young pitchers.
Well, it shouldn't affect John then on that count.
In fact, I'm sure Art Fowler in the middle when he saw the Disney show said, here we go again. Goofy's out there just like the atmosphere around here.
I'm sure he said exactly that, Tony. I can almost hear him saying it. 0-2 to Chili Davis. One out, nobody on, top half of the second. John has been given up for dead in a baseball sense more than once. The most obvious time back in '74 at age 31. He had that operation on his elbow. Came back strong. Dr. Frank Jobe performing the then miraculous surgery. And then following the '85 season, he was cut loose by Oakland. The Angels had released him. He went to Oakland for a couple of months, finished up. They released him as well, and he came back to the Yanks. In the air to right, easy chance for Winfield. Nobody thought that at age 42 Tommy had anything left at all. George Steinbrenner took yet another chance on him, and John has pitched effectively here.
He has been accused many times, as you know, of scuffing up the baseball, and They're talking to him, and Art Fowler, the pitching coach, and Art said, you know, Tommy's just like me. He said, we don't like the balls rubbed up too much. We never scuff the baseball. Mr. Steinbrenner, who is at the ball game today.
Gentleman alongside him with the glasses and the beard, Tom Rich, agent for many big league players. Here's a line drive to left for a base hit for Armas, including Jack Clark.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people felt that Tom Rich trying to return favors to Mr. Steinbrenner. He helped him move some of his people, the Mumphreys and the Griffeys, who were unhappy here. May have taken Jack Clark and the silver platters, and here you are, Mr. Steinbrenner.
Number 16.
He's all yours. Jack Howell playing with a bruised thumb on his left hand, but with that port shot in right field, and he's strong and a pull hitter. Cookie Rojas feels he could have started him against Leiter, who struggled again last night. He'll start him against TJ and hope he could reach the seats.
Until this year, Howell was a platoon player. Seldom, if ever, started against left-handers. The 1-0 pitch is in there. The Yankees recall the outfielder Jay Buhner from Columbus. They sent the lanky left-hander Lee Guterman down. That was yesterday. Guterman, who had worked out of the pen here, will be a starter at Columbus. Billy Martin could have Rick Rhoden back within the next week. He's going to pitch a simulated game on Monday. Guidry has pitched well in a rehab assignment in Class A ball in Fort Lauderdale. And Guidry could come back within a week or so and possibly work out of the bullpen.
Another man, I don't know if he'll ever make it back, but he was on one of those great Oakland staffs. Billy Martin, Rick Langford, 4-1 now, right-hander that you might recall with that great slider at Columbus. So there is some depth in the down to the AAA roster.
Pitch to Howell. He lays off, but it's in there for strike 2.
I wanted to say a while ago, Art Fowler and Tommy John talking about they didn't like the balls rubbed up a lot. They like a slicker ball for what they call, quote unquote, a dry spitter.
Whatever it was, Howell goes down looking. It's the first strikeout for Tommy John. The Angels have a hit, but they leave a man. No score after 1.5. For those of you who had tossed your TV guides aside in disgust, these are the actual games. Coming up next, after our broadcast from Yankee Stadium, most of you will see the Mets and Giants from Candlestick. Some will see the Twins and Tigers later today on NBC. Jack Clark, the starter in the bottom of the second. He's hit 6 home runs. He takes strike 1 from Petrie,
who has always taken a lot of pitches, but more so in the American League. As he goes around through the league the first time and sees these pitchers, he wants to see what their pitches do, what their selection is, what the pattern is to him. We get called out on strikes a lot, but he never has a bad rep.
Last year, he struck out more than 130 times, walked more than 130 times for the Cardinals. This year, despite missing almost 2 weeks at the start, his 29 walks tie him for the league lead with Baltimore's Cal Ripken. 0-2 and down low.
It's somewhat unusual for a player to have more RBIs than hits. Jack Clark does. He got 19 hits, but 20 RBIs. But the real unusual one's coming up later. Paliarulo with 26 base hits has 33 RBIs.
Called strike 3. And the first K placed in the book by Petrie.
As Jack Clark goes around the league, and he told us this when we saw him in Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago, he will probably move up on the plate a little bit more. He guesses sometimes up until 2 strikes. Does stride into the ball, looking away, but Petrie makes the pitch right on the outer edge.
Laudell Washington went 3 for 4 last night. They checked down at third base, and he went around for strike 1. Ted Hendry, the umpire there.
An unusual Yankee 24-man roster of position players in that they have just 3 left-handed hitters. They're all in this game, so there are none on the bench. And they've made a history in this ballpark of stacking with left-handed hitters. You could see years back sometimes 7, 8 would start because of the short porch here against right-handed pitchers. With Cruz down and disabled, who had a hot spring. That's one less.
Rolled to McLemore. He's up with it. And that takes care of Claudell Washington. 2 quick outs in the Yankees second, and the applause now is for Winfield. In the last guaranteed year of his contract, Winfield off to a .413 start. His on-base percentage is nearly .500. And he's hitting exactly that, .500, with men in scoring position.
And Lou Piniella has fought since spring training to prevent a trade when Mr. Steinbrenner obsessed with getting rid of Big Dave.
Here's a breaking ball hit hard to left. Ray started in, now goes back and reaches up to make the catch. He is a man, to put it mildly, in unfamiliar territory, Johnny Ray in left. Mr. Steinbrenner told me a different version on that very story today, and we'll come back with that after these messages from your local station.
Number 8.
Well, Al Nipper gave the lead back. So behind Bob Nepper, the Astros now lead at home 2-1 over the Cubs in the second inning. Boone, Schofield, and Downing in the third against Tommy John. This is career game number 1,999 for Bob Boone, virtually all of them as a catcher. He has caught more games than any man in the history of baseball.
Let's see, Pops Ray had 100 home runs. He's got 99. The only combination, father and son, who've hit 100 in the major leagues, are the Bells.
Gus and Buddy. 2-1.
Young Brett Boone at USC. I believe this could be his last weekend of play for USC unless they make the tournament. Little second baseman who's hitting about .350 on the year.
Boone and Carlton Fisk remain ongoing wonders of determination and modern conditioning. In the vicinity of 40 and catching at least close to regularly.
Now Fisk now disabled, fractured hand with some pins. Hope that's not the end of his season.
Bouncer to short, easy hop for Santana, 1 out.
Fisk was having the kind of year with his run production, 8 home runs and the RBIs. Could have been on the All-Star team along with Don Slott. Slott having a great year.
As Schofield steps in, we take this opportunity to remind you the telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball. May not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
That's the backdoor breaking ball. First time we've seen it today. He'll just stay out there if Jim Evans keeps giving it to him. His fastball does so many different things. John Filippelli, a producer, always loves when I get into it. Sinks, sails, tails, rides. Tommy can do all of those at times.
Winfield and right. Puts it away. Here's Downing now, who singled his first time up, and let's take a look back to the 9th inning last night. The Angels down a run, down to their last out. Guante gets a pitch where he doesn't want it. Downing really didn't tag it all that well, and it barely eludes Henderson's leap, strikes the foul pole. Look at Downing. At first, he thought he had flied out weakly to end the game, and then lo and behold, it's out for the game-winning homer.
Showing the lack of power at this stage on this Angels team. There was a home run by Tony Armas earlier in the ball game off Neil Allen, and that broke a string of 97 consecutive innings. That's almost what? 11 games without a home run.
One pitch. John working quickly as ever, ahead 1-2. You'll see hitters step out of the box a lot with John working, just to try and give themselves some time, because if they let him, he'll go right back to work. Boom.
And infielders love it. He's around the plate. You know you're going to get ground balls. His last outing, 17 outs at one time, and it was a good outing. 5 strikeouts, and the rest were ground ball outs.
Slot wigwags the sign, and here comes the 2-2.
Change up.
Just as he did last year, John has repeatedly given the Yankees a chance to win, even though he's often come away with a no decision. The Yankees have won 4 of his 6 starts this year. Last year they won 22 of the 33 games he started. Another changeup hit toward the hole, and Downing is now 2 for 2.
The second baseman.
This ballpark, even though the fence has been shortened again this year, about 10-12 feet in left center field, and dead center field is a park made for Tommy John. He will make you single him to death usually. Hasn't given up a home run his last 3 starts. You get a lot of singles. You've got to put 3 base hits usually against him when his control is right to get a run. Can get 2 quick outs very easily with 1 pitch with a double play ground ball out.
How effective do you guess he would have been in the old Yankee Stadium when it was 460 plus to center, 457 to left center, 402 to straightaway left?
Probably more, but I don't know. You guys won over 250 ball games. Last year that was 412 by the 399 sign. But the Mantle era, the DiMaggio era, that was 457 to left center field and 461 to dead center field.
The 1-0 pitch to McLemore. 2-0. By the way, I haven't forgotten the George Steinbrenner comment on Dave Winfield. When we have a chance, we'll work it in.
Well, I know you're going to tell me Mr. Steinbrenner said it wasn't his idea to trade Winfield, that he would let his baseball people take care of that.
Not exactly, but close.
Oh.
A chopper. Santana has it, goes for the force, and gets it with his flip to Randolph erasing Downing. So the Angels have had 1 hit in each of the first 3 innings, but haven't dented Tommy John yet. As we move to the last half of the 3rd, it's Pagliarulo, Slaught, and Santana, bottom of the Yankee order. Their lone hit through 2 against Petrie. A bunt single to start the game by Ricky Henderson, who was thrown out on the very next pitch by Bob Boone at second base. And a ball to Pags. You mentioned Dan Petrie's role as second fiddle to Jack Morris in Detroit. For 4 straight seasons between '82 and '85, Petrie won at least 15 for the Tigers, but was always overshadowed by Morris. Did he go around? He did, 1-1. Petrie was 19-11 for the '83 Tigers, and then 18-8 for the '84 World Champions.
He's pitched well against the Yankees. Over his career, he's 8 wins, 4 losses.
One pitch hit to Joyner. Petrie covers and takes care of Pagliarulo. Here comes Slaught, who went 2 for 3 last night, including an opposite field homer, his 5th of the year. He's hitting .381 with 26 RBIs. Last year, the 3 Yankee catchers, Cerrone, Skinner, and Salas, only Skinner remaining with the club from that trio, had just 49 RBIs in 638 at-bats. They got virtually no production from the catcher's spot. Slaught has been on fire since the season began.
Well, when you look at the deals that the GM Lou Piniello's made, Candelaria, Clark, free agency, spent Mr. Steinbrenner's money, of course. You got to get permission, but then you look at Slaught, the catching position they wanted and had to fill. Shortstop Santana has been criticized, but done a good, steady job.
How about Dotson?
Undefeated, 5-0.
Had to give up Dan Pasqua to the White Sox to get him, but it looks like a good deal. Howell makes a backhand play, and from next to the bag, throws him out.
Howell is playing about even with the bag, but off the line because Slaught, and he knows it now, Henderson bunted to lead off the game, but Billy will do that in certain situations to get something going. Will call a bunt, and because Billy plays that way, especially early in the ball game, he was close. Jack Howell at third, but he did make a nice play. Whoops, did he pull a hamstring there? I think he did. He came up limping. Your other catcher is Joel Skinner.
And was reaching down in the vicinity of his left thigh. A ball to Santana, quoted in the New York tabloids this week. Well, let's take a look again at Slot. Gets out of the box, digging toward first. I can't pick anything up there.
Well, a day game after a night game, and nobody works harder than the catcher, inning after inning, and you don't have a chance to loosen up quite as much. You're a little stiff and all the up and down. You go right back out there. I guess if you could get off the deck from that severe beating hitting in the face, you play through anything the way he's hitting. Good slider.
Rolled to short. Schofield waits on it and throws Santana out. Down go the Yankees in order in the third. And we take a look back now at a very special Olympic moment. Okay, Tony, here's the deal. I spoke with George Steinbrenner, who, as you know, can be a very charming man. And his
I know that. Don't have to tell me.
His statement on the Winfield deal was he was aggravated by the book, no doubt about it. According to George, more aggravated about things that were said about the Yankees in general and other Yankee players than anything that was said about Steinbrenner himself. And so he says to Martin and Piniella, you go ahead and decide. You want to trade him? You get a good enough deal, you decide. He portrayed Piniella as kind of neutral in that situation, but Martin as originally being in favor of trading Winfield. And they discussed several deals. Jesse Barfield from Toronto, Kevin Bass from Houston, etc., etc. Here's Johnny Ray against Tommy John in the fourth. No score, Yanks and Angels. And eventually, as those deals fizzled, and as Winfield continued to lead the league in hitting, all thoughts of trading him were shelved.
Now, Lou was neutral. Where did the direct quote come from when Lou said, if Winfield goes, Mr. Steinbrenner, I leave too?
Ray with a bullet down the left field line, and it kicks up chalk. It's a fair ball. A fan grabs it. It's a double. Well, perhaps he was originally neutral and then lapsed into some expression of his true feelings.
This is indicative of the way Johnny Ray has hit during his career in the National League on the artificial surface. What, he had doubles, 30 doubles or more, about 7 years in a row. He's in the same kind of boat in this league. They haven't been able to get him out since he came over here. He'll have 30-some doubles again this year for the Angels.
That was his 14th. He leads the league. Here's Joyner, who grounded back to the box his first time up. He takes a strike. You realize, Tony, I am but the humble servant here. I am merely communicating what Mr. Steinbrenner told me.
But, however, sometimes your naivete astounds me that you believe everything you hear.
The fact that I said it,
especially around here,
doesn't mean that I believed it. I'm merely covering both ends of the spectrum.
Wally's going to try and pull the ball right here. Get Ray to third base with less than 2 outs.
And John is ahead of him 0-2. Now about Billy Martin. I said to George, okay, what if there's another incident? Regardless of who's right, who's wrong, and what happened in the strip joint in Texas, regardless of whose version you believe, or if there's a little truth and a little falsehood on both sides, what happens if something like this occurs again? This will be an 0-2 pitch. Way outside, and Joyner wouldn't bite. And Steinbrenner said, yes, I'm concerned about Martin. I'm concerned about his judgment and about where he was, and I have assigned one of my coaches to be with him at all times. And his wife Jill will make virtually all road trips henceforth.
And if Billy hadn't been in first place, he'd been about 8 games out, he probably would have been sat down by Mr. Steinbrenner for a while. That was being first place.
Joyner sits down as John records his second strikeout, and Wally fails to advance the runner.
That was a crazy pitch right there. Here's a guy that doesn't strike out very much. He creeps up on the plate a little bit to give better coverage, and the ball drops out of sight. We're going to maybe try for you in the course of this game with that center field camera to get into Tommy John's glove. They did that to him here, or was it Sutton? For the PIX crew.
Sutton.
Saw Don Sutton scuffing a baseball. They sent the film to the league office.
A changeup is poked into left, and it drops for a hit. So Davis singles. Ray held up and moves only to third. First and third, 1 out, and the game's best scoring opportunity for either club so far.
Not only has Ricky Henderson been playing well offensively, in fact, almost out of his mind, he is a threat this year defensively. Last year, he had the pull hamstring. There was a dispute, an ongoing dispute between him and, of course, Lou Piniella, then the manager. But his speed out there kept Johnny Ray frozen. Figured if he comes in and catches it, I'm gone at home plate. He's been playing exceptional left field. Likes it there a lot more than he did center field. Billy has accommodated him and has got him a happy ball player now.
So now it's Armas, who's a guy you can strike out, although usually the pitch he has the most trouble with is high heat. A good fastball up and in, which John at this stage of his career really can't deliver.
He will hit in the double plays. He will strike out a lot, although he's cut that down a lot. Of course, he's pretty much a platoon situation when Devon White was healthy.
He had 2 hits, including a homer last night. He singled in his first time up today. 2-0.
Armas all but looked the way he was locking that left leg, trying to shoot the ball the opposite way, with Randolph shading towards second base. There's a big gap between him and Mattingly, the first baseman. Santana playing in the hole, Randolph cheating. Armas, at least the first 2 pitch, may again try and shoot the ball the other way, get it in the air, make the double play harder to turn.
They're going to get 2 here. Randolph to Santana, on to first, and they turn it over.
That was an outstanding play by Santana. We showed you where he was defensively. He had a long way to run, and he was fair game for the runner coming off first base. Rafael made an outstanding double play pivot.
The game of the week is brought to you by Toyota. There's quality, then there's Toyota quality. Who could ask for anything more?
Earlier in the season in Toronto, on a double play pivot, much easier than this with Roden pitching. Santana flipped the ball out of his glove and led to a 6-run inning. Billy got very heated and benched Santana for a while. Since then, he's been playing pretty well.
Henderson has the only hit off Petrie, a bunt single in the first. When he came up to bat, you saw the graphic about him hitting 34 game-opening home runs, one behind Bobby Bonds' Major League record of 35. Well, they'll have to wait at least one more day for another chance. But it's interesting to note that Bobby Bonds' son, Barry, has hit game-opening homers each of the last 2 nights for the Pirates, and he's already done it 12 times in his young career. Chip off the old block.
Oh, is he a great young talent? Run, throw. Just talked about his power.
In the left field, Johnny Ray comes on and makes the catch. Now as Willie Randolph advances toward the plate, let's take a look at a play early in last night's game. Claudell Washington slices a hit to left field. Randolph is coming around third, and Clete Boyer, the third base coach, makes contact with him. There it is. Now, Willie says he was going to stop and go back anyway as Johnny Ray's throw headed toward the plate. Boyer says he merely brushed against him, wasn't intending to grab him and restrain him. And here's a roller to McLemore. 2 out now in the Yankee fourth. But the rule is very specific. Any sort of contact can be interpreted as interference. You don't have to put a full bear hug on the guy. And so Randolph was called out. And had he stayed put and had there been no interference, Winfield would have been up with the bases loaded.
That is a tough spot in the pinstripe uniform. Frankie Crissetti held that position for almost 30 years. And remember Mike Ferraro, who felt the wrath of George Steinbrenner. Finally was let go, coaching third base. Ferraro's back.
I believe that one was for sending the very same Willie Randolph home in 1980 in Game 2 of the playoffs against the Royals in Kansas City. When Mattingly goes deep, the Yankees are going to be in front. It's homer number 2 for Donnie this season. Petrie had retired 10 in a row after Henderson opened the game with a bunch single until Mattingly got to him.
Yesterday, before the ball game, Mattingly took some extra hitting. He hit line drives all over the place. He said, I don't feel right. I feel terrible. He went 0 for 4. Today, he took batting practice again, made a couple of adjustments with his right arm, getting the bat out more instead of collapsing the front side. He said, I didn't hit the ball well, but I felt good. How do you explain that? I mean, and he and Boggs and Tony Gwynn, they talk about mechanics, but finally they say, I've seen the ball and I've got the feel. And all the scientific thoughts go out of their mind. See the ball and hit it.
0-1 to Jack Clark. That's strike 2.
Imagine what this team's got when Mattingly starts hitting for more power as he appears to be starting now. Wow.
Clark, Mattingly, Winfield, Henderson, Paliarulo, barring injury, all a cinch to hit better than 20 home runs. Some will exceed 30. One and two, and of course, if either Ward or Claudell Washington played every day, one or the other would have a crack at hitting 20 home runs.
Jay Buhner, a young prospect just recalled, has outstanding power. And then there's Bam Bam Mullins on double-A ball.
Clark fans for the second time today went down looking his first time, this time swinging. But Mattingly's homer has given the Yankees the lead after 4, and we'll be back after these messages from your local station. Seconds ago, Petrie in the dugout talking to his catcher Bob Boone, and out of your picture but close by is Marcel Latchman, the pitching coach, and just disgusted with where he put that pitch to Don Mattingly.
He won a ball game 2-1 the last time out, beating the young right-hander from Cleveland, John Fairley, allowed a home run to Kittle. And then he had that 1-0 loss the start before that against Jack Morris, his old friend. He perhaps made it too fat, not perhaps, but with Mattingly you don't know when he gets up on the plate and starts turning on balls that are out and away.
Counting the 4 innings he's pitched today, even including the Mattingly homer, in his last 21 innings of work, he's allowed only 18 hits and 3 earned runs, so he's really pitching well for Cookie Rojas. Howell was a strikeout victim in the second. Popped into shallow center. Claudell Washington racing in. Henderson from left, and it drops in between 3 fielders, including Santana, who went out from shortstop. So a bloop single for Howell to start the 5th.
You will probably see more bloops, especially with no outs and 2 outs in this ballpark, than any other ballpark, because with no outs you want to keep the guy from getting into scoring position, so you play deeper. With 2 outs you do the same thing to prevent a double or a gapper, and so because it's so spacious in left and dead center field, you see more of those on this type of field.
Here's Boone. Squares to bunt and gets it down. John's only play is to first successful sacrifice.
Under Gene Mock, Boone, who batted in the 9th spot a lot, led the league in sacrifices a couple of years. I believe what Cookie Rojas is trying to do, and you say, well, that's early, 5th inning, 1-0 difference, but he knows that the Yankee bullpen has been in disarray. And he'd like to stay close to Tommy John, hoping you'll get him out after 7 innings, which has been the history of Tommy John lately. And then he can get into that Yankee pen.
A pen even more vulnerable than usual today, because both Allen and Guante had long stretches last night. And apparently, Martin has lost confidence in Righetti. A liner, Paliarulo short hops it and throws Schofield out. So Howell at second with 2 down.
Clint Boyer's been trying to get Mike Paliarulo to approach his defense positioning and get ready spot the same way every time. He says 2 or 3 different things, different ways he does. And sometimes he gets caught in the middle and he limits his range right and left. But as Cleet said, who helped Carney Lansford so when Cleet was the coach, third base coach at Oakland, has begun to have an effect on Paliarulo. Stabilizes defense. And Pags has got a great glove. He's made some outstanding plays this year. I saw him in a series in Toronto where he almost put on a clinic.
Howell, a tying run at second with 2 out. Downing has a pair of singles off John. 2-0 the count. And here comes Billy. And there are still many more cheers than boos for him here.
You know, I talked to Don Slott because there was a lot written about the shouting match after the game after Downing's home run. And Slott said, you know, writers wrote, I guess, that it was pitch selection. That Billy wanted the ball down and away, and I didn't throw it there. He said, that's where we tried to throw it. He said, Billy was more upset, though, that I couldn't get in Guante's mind to get the ball away. And he said, if he doesn't listen to you, walk out the mound between pitches every single time. We didn't want to get hurt in that situation, get beaten in the last inning, which has happened 5 times to this Yankee ball club already. 4 times to Righetti.
2-0 pitch. Misses. Righetti has blown his last 4 save opportunities and hasn't worked since May 2nd.
You know, a reminder, you got 2 down, a man on second. Tie and run down there. Downing, who's already hurt us yesterday, 2 for 2. McLemore next, not an RBI man. First base is open. And they didn't intentionally walk him for all intents and purposes, but I guess that's what it was.
John issues his first walk on 4 pitches. Fowler in between Boyer and Martin. You know, when you think about Billy and the events of this past week, there are so many sarcastic comments you can make, and there are a lot of cheap jokes that can be made. But I really think that a fair-minded person comes to just one conclusion, and that is that the situation is more sad than it is infuriating, certainly more sad than it is funny. Here is a guy, regardless of the whys and wherefores of the latest incident, who has been involved in dozens of incidents, great and small, through the years. And he's 2 days away from being 60 years old. It's not funny.
He's a living example of the law of the jungle and survival of the fittest, year in and year out. I guess Billy's been that way since he was a kid when he played basketball in the streets of Oakland Bay area. I had a chance to take this only for what it's worth, to see Billy in his shorts before he got dressed yesterday, and if that was the side of a building that got him, with his knee, shoulder, and it looked like the side of his face, it looked like his ribs had been kicked in when he was down. It makes you almost not doubt his story, although the Arlington Police Department eyewitness reports say, Billy was just thrown out of the bar. Boy, he is really beat up on his left side of his body.
Now it's 3-0 to McLemore. Johnny Ray is on deck. First and second, 2 out, 1-0 Yankees, and a strike. Of course, it's possible that neither story is entirely truthful. Maybe he wasn't really slugged around by some patrons, but maybe when the bouncers sent him on his way, they did more than just toss him into a wall. Maybe.
Here's where Tommy John refuses to give in, even though he's 3-1 in the count. He threw a good fat pitch, didn't get it though.
Santana to Randolph for the force. Well, Petrie has been masterful except for one mistake to Mattingly. On the other hand, John has not been in complete command, but has escaped each time. Just to finish up on Billy, Tony, those who are around the club every day, the Yankee beat writers, etc., even those who have been critical of Billy in the past, acknowledge that he's gone out of his way to be conciliatory, to be more friendly, at least up until this point this year. He desperately wants to make this 5th tenure as the Yankee manager a success. But obviously there are some internal demons that he must do battle with on a fairly regular basis.
I wonder if the league president, Dr. Bobby Brown, who played with Billy for 3 years, and the commissioner, Peter Ueberroth, who talked to Billy back in spring training, I understand, about straightening his head. I wonder if it's the end of it, or there will be something for the good of the game, so to speak, disciplinary action as they continue to investigate. Billy many times has been victimized, many times, probably more he started himself.
Claudell Washington. However, and we'll put it to bed with this one, it eventually gets to the point where a guy cannot be totally the victim of circumstance that many times. Eventually you change the circumstances, you figure out what's going on, and you change the circumstances so that this doesn't happen to you time and time again. 1-2. And Washington hits it well to left center field. Ray comes over and makes the catch.
Right fielder, Dave Winfield.
Now it'll be Winfield, who lined hard to left in his only at-bat.
What George has done for Dave Winfield, and most of it has been negative, but the positive thing is Dave's new book has been on the bestseller list, what, about 6 or 7 weeks, and they're ready into their 3rd printing, I believe. Sold about 120 copies in this area mostly.
We're in the last of the 5th. Yanks lead 1-0 on Mattingly's homer. Right through the heart of the plate, strike 1 to Winfield. Houston extends its lead by a run over the Cubs at the Astrodome. Some have complained that Winfield never became the superstar that George Steinbrenner and others might have expected him to be with the Yankees. Well, it depends upon how you define it. In every measurable way, his production has exceeded the norms he set in San Diego before they acquired him as a free agent. He's driven in over 100 5 straight years prior to last year, and even last year when he drove in 97 and just missed, he hit better than 350 with men in scoring position. He's a Gold Glove outfielder, and he gives you 100% every single day.
Well, the theatrics of Reggie in this ballpark were hard for him to live up to.
And as soon as Reggie departed, Mattingly emerged. So he may not have provided the marquee that some expected, but he's put up the numbers.
And yet of the names you've mentioned, and these are all 3 great ball players, all destined for the Hall of Fame, I believe, you might take Winfield all around above Reggie and Mattingly because of his defense, his base running, perhaps the best base runner even at his age in the American League. Accurate throwing arm, yeah. Climb walls, yes. Terrorize double play partners at second base and save ball games. Now, it goes unnoticed because you always remember Mr. May, that tag, and he had a bad World Series. What, 1 for 22?
Yeah. In '81 against the Dodgers, his first year with the Yanks. Aliarulo will be next. 1 out, nobody on, and the 1-2 pitch. Reached for it and got a little piece of it. Boone couldn't hold on.
If you had to rate Dan Petrie's pitches, and he's fastball, curveball, slider, occasional change, you'd probably say his slider is still his #1 pitch. Not that the fastball's bad, but his out pitch is that hard, late-breaking slider, which you just saw. Somehow Winfield got a little piece of it to stay alive.
Here's a ball rocketed to left. Ray turns, but it's over his head and gone.
Fastball down and in.
Turmoil that always surrounds the Yankees, especially this year, nothing has spoken more eloquently than Dave Winfield's bat. Homer number 8, RBI number 35. The RBI figure is the American League's best. Aliarulo, it's 2-0 Yanks. Hard shot, and Joyner can't come up with it. Aliarulo thinking about second base as McLemore chases it down, and Pags is in there.
The ball was hit so hard it was almost self-defense. Joyner was just going to try and slap it down as he went down to his knees. You know, I was watching, and Joyner's got an outstanding glove and a good throwing arm, one of the best at first base. I was watching Aliarulo when he looked up to see where the ball was, and I wasn't sure if he touched first base or not. Joyner couldn't see it, and Petrie kind of stopped running once he saw the ball get by him.
Even though it was hit almost right at Joyner, because of how hard the ball was hit, it's ruled a double.
A chance to see why a Pagliarulo's batting average is low. He's here for one reason: pull the ball and get in the seats. So he'll give up some at-bats, doesn't cut his swing down, always trying to reach the seats. I'm going to walk the right-hander.
So Slot will get a free pass, and they'll take their chances with Santana.
Cookie Rojas. Mike Riva at one time filled in, was a Cuban manager, and of course Preston Gomez managed a couple of different places, also of Cuban descent. You know, this team's had a little bit of a slow start, as everybody knows, and some of it is, I think, you know, they've had some injuries, the Angels, but a lot of it is just the adjustment of the players to Cookie's style as opposed to Gene Mock's, and that's going to take a while. Their temperament's different, obviously. Their style of managing will be somewhat the same, but not completely.
And Joel Skinner now has gone in to run at first base.
Pull muscle.
Yeah. The last time up, Slot, grounding out to third, apparently pulled something in his left leg running down the first base line. Now, he stayed in for a couple more innings, but now after the intentional walk, Joel Skinner, who will replace Slot behind the plate, goes in to run for him.
Joel Skinner might be about as good a defensive catcher as there is in the American League. Ron Karkovice, who also been called up, and of course Skinner was in the White Sox organization. Skinner is among the tops also, along with Karkovice.
Santana lines one to left for a base hit. Ray slips it right into the wall. 2 runs will score. Santana will be at least at third. Ray chases it to the fence. Boyer stops Santana, and the Yankees lead 4-0.
Yesterday on that interference play that we showed a while ago, Bob, Ray charged the ball, and the ball bounced up to him. Bat off caught Al Washington. That's when Cleat and Randolph kind of collided, and they were out of the inning. This time he charges it again. He overcharges it like he did last night, but the ball stays down. And this time it costs, what's that, 6 errors or 7 for him now in the outfield?
Well, the ridiculous and the sublime are embodied in one man when it comes to Johnny Ray. He may eventually master left field, but he's a complete novice out there. He has been sublime with the bat.
They've scored that a triple, and really it's somewhat of a gift on the 2 extra bases because he did overcharge it. The ball did stay down, but it's a ball because of his inexperience and his over-exuberance. He let it get by him, but they were charitable to Santana.
If that's a triple, I'm Martin Van Buren. What?
Marty, let me tell you something. That was a pretty good bunch of hitting by Santana. And Cookie Rojas' strategy backfires. Didn't really backfire, though, because Petrie did not make a very good pitch to Santana. Intentionally walked Slot to get to the 9-hitter. And he gave a nice pitch up and a little bit in. Okay, Santana, since Billy had him in the doghouse, you're right, he was trying to get an angle on the ball, surrounded, the ball stayed down. The way he played it, he was scored a triple. Really should have been 1 run on that thing. Ray Krozik, sometime with Pittsburgh, the White Sox, got a good forkball. In fact, they've got about 3 or 4, and they're all right-handed down there. Bice, Harvey, all throw a forkball.
1-0 to Henderson with the infield in. 1 out. 3 runs home in the 5th. Well, not only does it save Ray what should have been his 6th error, but it gives Santana an additional gift RBI. He deserved 1, which would have made it 3-0. Now he gets 2, as both runners scored. Skinner scored from first.
Henderson is not the kind of guy you want a suicide squeeze on, but Billy puts those thoughts in people's mind. He's got the infield creeping in.
Fouled off and out of play.
I don't don't think there's a player in baseball more difficult to play, a leadoff hitter, than Rickey Henderson. You talk about the Colemans because he can bunt and a switch hitter. Some of the others, but when you get a right-hand hitter with power, with the great speed, who can bunt, drive the ball by you, there's just really no way for a third baseman to come out ahead on Rickey Henderson. Best leadoff hitter of all time.
The 1-2 pitch is bounced back to Petrie. Santana holds, and Henderson's out at first. The official scorer today is one of the best in the business, veteran baseball man Red Foley. I hope he takes another look at the replay, because I doubt that Red has been guilty very frequently of that serious a misjudgment. There is no way that that was a triple.
Well, the way he played it, Red scores it a triple. And I know what you're saying, but by overcharging, and again, I know you cannot figure an inexperience, but I think in the back of Red's mind, perhaps he said that, or thought that. He overplayed the ball. He overcharged it.
Red's one of the best, but I think this time he blew it.
Boy, you can lose friends faster than anybody I know. You lost George today. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, man.
He wanted to come up throwing, and the ball stayed down, and he overran it. I agree with you.
I guarantee when Red and I get together after the game, the gathering will be convivial. It's just an honest baseball disagreement. And he's seen many more games than I have.
Now with Randolph's wrist, even with 2 outs, a man on third, Howell's got to be careful for him dropping a bunt down.
1-1.
What do you think of the Bronx Bombers and the power this team's got? But they are leading the league in sacrifice hits, leading the league in stolen bases, leading the league in sacrifice flies. We've told you about all the power numbers. On base percentage, and Randolph is one of those. Even though he's not hitting, he'll take walks. You know, Santana off third base is trying to draw a balk, and now Boone is going to go out and say, look, stop worrying about him. The Angels have lost 2 ball games. Bice balked to run home and cost him the ball game. Harvey, I believe, in the 13th balked to run home. Look at Santana jockeying around. I mean, these pitchers are so ball conscious. That's why so many of them now are pitching from the windup with a man on third, giving that runner on third more leeway. Yankees have lost a game on the balk in the 9th inning already this year. It's got to be ridiculous.
And in this case, it's totally a mind game, because with 2 outs, the squeeze is not a concern, and Santana's not going to steal home. He has 2 stolen bases in his whole career. He comes down the line. Petrie ignores him. Breaking ball. Boone throws in behind him, but not in time.
See, that's what when you force a guy into a windup, you give a guy enough leeway, and Cletus already had a runner steal home, and he just simply says, look, if you can get a good enough start and think you can make it, keep on going. And Santana doesn't have good speed, but if Petrie doesn't take his eye off him. Remember years ago, and I remember Eddie Lopat Whiteyford used to do a double pump and dare the guy and let him wear himself out. Not illegal, but I haven't seen a double pump, a triple pump. Left-handers used to do a lot with a man on third base. That will probably come back someday if they keep calling these numbers of balks. Although totals have been going down a little bit the last week or so.
So Randolph draws the walk, and now Petrie has to contend with Mattingly, who homered his last time up. In this inning, after Washington flied to left, Winfield lined a homer over the fence and left. Paliarulo doubled. Slaught was walked intentionally. Santana tripled to left. Henderson bounced to the mound. Santana holding third, and now Randolph is walked. 2 on, 2 out, 3 runs already home. 4-0 Yankees. Ball 1 to Mattingly.
We'll zero in on the signs and see if we can focus on location. Fastball away, I believe. Sign of the location when the sign.
Here's a rocket to right, but it's foul.
That was interesting the way Boone, Doyle Alexander, and some other pitchers, and perhaps Boone, they will give the sign in the location with one finger at the same time. One could be a fastball in and could have been a decoy away. Two could be a fastball away. So one doesn't always mean simply fastball. Boy, isn't that a great camera shot?
Here it is on 1-1, and he rips it to right. It was down, and he went and got it. Santana scores. It's 5-0. Randolph pulls up at third, and Mattingly has a double.
What he hit, Mattingly, looked like a great pitch. Looked like he almost scooped it up off the ground.
Yep.
But Santana's base hit after the intentional walk still very big. He's jumping out of Billy Martin's doghouse in a hurry, isn't he? And the misplay in left field.
Watch the pitch to Mattingly.
Look at this. He generates such terrific power. It is down, it is away, perhaps out of the strike zone with his lower body.
4 hits, all of them for extra bases in this inning, plus a couple of walks, and Petrie is finished. We'll be back. Coming up, the second half of the NBC doubleheader. Most of you will see the Mets and the Giants from Candlesticks. Some a renewal of last year's matchup in the American League Championship Series. The Twins and the Tigers from Detroit.
Ron Darling for the Mets, Mike Krukow for the Giants. All of a sudden, Ron Darling has become a Davey Johnson favorite. They used to be at each other, it seemed, and now, really, Ron hadn't pitched a bad game. Even through spring training. Tanana, he's had an outstanding start for the Tigers. And the Tigers, because of losing Gibson this year, Parrish last year, everybody said they couldn't make it. Well, they got Sparky and that pitching staff. Henneman having a big year. Ray Krosick, good fork ball, little slider.
Used to be in the Pirate organization. They let him go, and the Angels picked him up as a free agent. He'll have to contend with Jack Clark, the 9th man to bat in the inning. Jack struck out in both appearances against Petrie. Randolph is at third. Mattingly, after the RBI double, is at second. And that's strike one.
Some crazy plays. Petrie really deserved better, not just to play left field. And although Paliulo ball was hit hard, there was a shot at it that Joyner could have gotten the ball, and perhaps it could have been averted. But the defense of this ball club has not been good, and not blaming Joyner because basically it was a bullet. But he's caught balls like that before.
A run in the 4th, 4 more here in the 5th. 5-zip New York. You know, one of the things Jack Clark pointed to when he left the Cardinals and came to the Yankees, in a move that still mystifies and infuriates many people in St. Louis, was the increased possibility of endorsements in New York. And he has had a few. Not that he needs the dough. That misses. I love Mike LaVallier's comment in Pittsburgh. Somebody asked him if with the Pirates' recent success it would mean more endorsement money for the players. He said, no, we get too many ugly guys.
Oh. Clark says this would be the 3rd best hitting park in the National League. He said these dimensions aren't that big. You know, he is typical of the kinds of right-handed hitters that have played in this ballpark for a lot of years. Lou Skowron, Elston Howard, Hank Bauer, a tremendous power, although he's more of a pull hitter. The guys that make their living here day in and day out are those left-handed hitters who can pull the ball in the right field seats.
Here's a ball bounced to short. Schofield puts an end to it, but 9 men come to the plate for the Yankees. They score 4 times. They lead 2. Big hits, homers by Winfield, a double by Paliulo, controversial triple by Santana, another double by. A glimpse into the Memorial Park out beyond the barrier in left center field. Jacob Rupert, who ran the Yankees way back when. And there are monuments and plaques out there honoring Mantle and DiMaggio, Gehrig and Ruth, Stengel and Huggins. Tommy John has been staked to a 5-0 lead as he goes to work here in the 6th. He'll face Johnny Ray, Wally Joyner, and Chili Davis. What do you think Johnny Ray's father's name is?
You must know. You would ask. This is a trick question.
Our producer, John Filippelli, says Sting. No, it's not Stingray.
I know you could tell us whether I ask you or not.
Yeah.
Would you please?
His name is Ray.
Ray?
Yeah. You know what it is? It's
No,
Ray
Ray.
Ray. You know what his middle name is? It's no lie.
No, don't tell me.
He walks on 4 pitches. Charles.
Ray Charles Ray.
Yeah.
First baseman,
No, I didn't. I thought you'd enjoy a little glimpse at the Ray family tree.
So you went into the archives, deep into the catacombs to dig that baby out. A little known tidbit. You know, this might be, if you look at the Houston 3-1 score, Nepper, starting pitcher in that against Nipper. This could be the kind of game that Righetti, with not much pressure, if Tommy John can hold it for another inning or so, might get out of that bullpen for about 11 games without an appearance.
Well, a potential problem with Righetti is, fine if you've lost confidence in him for a while and you don't want to bring him into crucial save situations. That's one thing. But if he doesn't work for 2 weeks, how's he going to stay sharp at all? There he is, blowing a bubble in the extreme corner.
He literally did appear to be buried in that corner.
Mattingly, tricky little hop at the last, but he takes it unassisted as Ray moves down to second with 1 out.
Yeah, this is such a game of peaks and valleys. Even the great players, it's a Mays or a Mantle or a Koufax, because the great players have shorter valleys and a lot longer peaks. But if you don't go with a guy when he's in those valleys, you may never see the peaks, and that's what you've got to be afraid of with Dave Righetti. I'd love to go out there and see the inscriptions in some of those plaques. Elston Howard, a man of great gentleness and dignity. Joe DiMaggio, greatest living player in baseball centennial year. I love Billy's.
Yeah.
I'm going to find it for you in a second. Just hold on. Let's get through Tommy John pitching.
Chili Davis. Squibs one to the right side. Mattingly again. Ray's at third now with 2 out.
Now, Alfred Manuel Billy Martin is simply Casey's boy, a Yankee forever. A lot of what he does, people forget that Stengel was a great defensive specialist and base running specialist. He did that himself. When he got to the Mets, of course, he was known as a buffoon because he had to be more of an actor. But Billy takes a lot of Casey's legacy along with him wherever he goes. Double stealing, delayed steals, hit and run, bunt and run.
Armas takes a ball outside. I wonder what counsel Casey would offer concerning Billy's nocturnal habits.
If you had had the opportunity to be around Casey a lot, many times when Ralph Houck was one of our coaches, somebody would call from the lobby of the Mulebach Hotel in Kansas City saying, Casey's here, it's 4 in the morning. Don't you have a day game tomorrow? He's regaling people with stories. So Billy learned a lot of that from Casey, too.
This is the last thing Tommy John has in mind. With a 5-0 lead, he walked Johnny Ray to start the inning. After a pair of groundouts, he's fallen behind Armas 3-0. With Skinner, the new catcher, with the sign, and that's a strike.
TJ's got 13 ground ball outs already this ball game. Through the double play in the first inning and the sacrifice in the 5th. Ow.
It's hit back through the middle. It might have gotten a piece of Tommy. In comes the first Angel run as Ray crosses the plate on the RBI hit by Armas.
You know, when TJ came back last year, that's one thing they were frightened of. With so many ground balls and sinker ball pitchers, by the nature of their performance with a lot of ground balls, have to be good fielders. But you get to Tommy John's age, almost 45, and the reflexes are gone. He reaches down and the ball's by him, and then he gets out of the way. They were afraid he wouldn't be able to field his position. And sometimes you look at a team with speed, you get surprised why they don't really bunt a lot more. Keep him active, move him off the mound. Buntable pitches because he does keep it low and they sink, but guys don't like to bunt these days.
Howell steps in and takes a strike. You talked about the Angels' slow start. The big difference this year is that unlike past years where the pace in the American League West was always very slow and a team had time to regroup, the A's have bolted out ahead of everybody to the point where insiders are almost conceding the division to them. It used to be you could cruise along in the AL West and get something going after the All-Star break. Now the A's are showing everyone their heels. The unexpected last night, though, not only did they lose to Baltimore, the Orioles, with their 5th win of the year, beat Dave Stewart, who had come into the game 8-0.
Hey, look, Texas has won 7 in a row. They're 6.5 out now. So you're looking at, you start saying it's over with the middle of May. There are teams can break down in a hurry. Eckersley has been brilliant. Welch is 5-2, but he's barely gotten in gear. They say he's now throwing well, and Stewart, well, he finally lost, but doggone, he's just been incredible.
Talking about streaks, how about those Brewers who lost last night? They've lost 4 in a row, right on the tail of a 9-game winning streak. They have to be the streakiest team in recent memory.
And so much of it centers around pitching, and with Higuera with a bad back missing some starts, that can hurt him when your stopper's down.
Popped into shallow left. Henderson comes in and lost the ball. It hits in their territory.
They're going to send that runner back, Armas to third. The Yankees did get a break. The ball got in the sun, then it drifted on Rickey. And with a left-hander up Howell, Santana was playing him up the middle of the diamond, so he had a long run with Henderson toward left center field. But by not touching it and bounding in the stands, runner goes from first only to third.
Now, on a play, let's say, where the ball had been touched by a fan, at least technically, it's up to the umpire's judgment.
Right.
He could allow the guy to score from first. Almost always they don't do it.
No
even in situations where it's clear that the guy would have scored, but it is within their power. Here, there's no argument. It's just 2 bases.
It's interesting, and I'm not certain of the rule. We're going to have to check on it, but I wonder what the rule is if the ball hit Rickey Henderson's glove, which it might have. It looked like the glove wrinkled a little bit. If that is not a different story. If he touches it and it bounces in. And I believe that hit off the webbing of his glove. It then is no longer a simple ground rule double. Let's see if Rickey touches. Then I believe judgment of the umpire comes in. Watch his glove, though. Watch it.
No,
missed it about 6. Ground rule double. Could have been a judgment call had it hit his glove. But it did.
Well, a base hit now makes things very interesting. Boone with runners at second and third. 1-1 the count. Ray opened the inning with a walk. Moved to third on a pair of groundouts. Scored on Armas's single. A seemingly harmless fly ball off Howell's bat turns into a ground rule double. Second and third, 2 out. And strike 2 to Boone. 1-2.
Well, if there's a tougher sun field in baseball than this, for Rickey Henderson with a long run, spring, fall gets better in the middle months of the summer. Probably have to be right fielder in Boston late in the game, or maybe Wrigley Field late in the ball game in day baseball with that wind. This rates among the toughest, if not the.
Hit toward the hole, and Pags comes up with it. He'll have time with Boone running and throws him out.
Was that a beauty? Saved 2 runs.
Big play to close out the Angels' 6th, then they have to settle for a single run, and there was a very tough short hop right at the end, and Pags was able to handle it. Did have to move to his left, but check the little in-between hop right at the end. Boom.
Fundamentally, everything was perfect. Crossover step, good quickness, but the play started with the pitcher being able to execute. Tommy John, run-scoring situation, allowed Mattingly to play off the line, as you saw, by a long ways, which made his range to his left better. But Tommy had to execute, get the ball down and away to the right-handed hitter.
Claudell Washington wraps one toward the hole, and that's a leadoff single in the last half of the 6th. The 7th Yankee hit. The Angels have 8. The Angels have at least 1 hit in every inning against Tommy John.
Right fielder,
Several teams in the majors with no left-handers in their bullpen, and that's what you'd like to have in Yankee Stadium, even though they only have 3 left-handed hitters. But with the forkball, they feel that's an effective pitch against left-handers.
The Winfield rampage continues today. Hit the ball hard both times against Petrie. A line shot to left in the 2nd that was caught by Ray, and then a homer to left in the 5th.
Don't put it by Billy to start a runner. That's maybe why he stepped off. Rojas wants to take a look of what the base runner is going to do if he'll tip something out.
Rosick chases him back. Bluffs a bunt and takes a ball, 1-0.
Now, a lot of these things are called by Billy Martin. He's obviously not sacrificing. Sometimes he will let Clete Boyer, the third base coach's flash, call some plays on his own, especially on steals of third or home plate if he thinks a guy can make it. But it's a decoy bunt to bring the corners in a little bit. Maybe make him cheat. Maybe a ground ball sneaks through. They're still looking for Washington to run. The stepping off is something that Gene Mock did as well as anybody, so he could read the runner, see if he tips something off. Throw over, step off. These are the kind of situations where the ball comes into play also. You step off, then you want to glide. If you think there's a hit and run, glide in your delivery, and you go too fast, and you lift the front leg before you come to your discernible stop, and the runner advances on the ball.
Finally, the 1-0 pitch. And he does bunt, but too hard back to the mound. They get one and not two. So Winfield is exchanged for Washington on the fours.
Again, not bunting for a sacrifice. Billy doesn't do that too often. He wants you to not give yourself up so easily. Bunt and try and beat it out. It wasn't one of those you square right around and say, you got me. It was just a poor bunt by Winfield.
So Big David first with one out. He missed games both Sunday and Monday after his new wife's 5-year-old niece was killed in a traffic accident. And our sympathies to the entire family after that terrible tragedy.
Boone perhaps going out to remind him to come to a stop.
One and one. A group of Dave's new wife's relatives were driving, I believe, from Louisiana to the Arlington, Texas area to watch Dave play this weekend. And the van swerved off the road. Little 5-year-old girl lost her life in the incident.
He has done a lot for this community, hasn't he? A great book that he's got out regarding substance abuse and staying away from drugs. A lot of money to the Winfield Foundation for kids. Just a few negative comments that have really been believed by some fans about him, and there's no truth to them.
One out, one on, a 1-1 pitch.
In the Cosal article in the back of the Daily News, talking about the FBI death threats by Winfield's friends that they were planted, and then an investigation supposedly in the Cosal article. State Attorney General's office of the Winfield Foundation. Apparently no credence to them at all.
Something's amusing Billy.
Billy's got Boone, Krausick, and Cookie Rojas thinking a lot, doesn't he? The same Billy was around after the game yelling and screaming, wasn't he, last night?
Paliarulo pokes one into right, and coming on to make the catch is Chili Davis. It's time to check with Marv Albert. He's at our studios in Manhattan with this update. Marv?
Thank you, Bob. It is Old Timers Day at Fenway. Bob Gibson on the mound, and former Red Sox George Scott, for some reason, attempted to steal home. George had his game face on, but not his game body. The Boomer has been living well. Back to Bob and Tony.
What a deep cutting remark by Marv.
And here's a ball poked by Skinner into right field. Joel hasn't had an at-bat in a couple of weeks, and he makes good here. He replaced Don Slaught, and the official word on Slaught is that he has a pulled groin muscle. Apparently not terribly serious, but the Yankees, taking no chances, got him out of there midway through the game. Here comes Cookie Rojas.
Rojas has had his bullpen going. Just off the disablest, Greg Minton should be loosened up for that great sinker ball.
So the Yankees have a 5-1 lead. 2 men on and 2 out here in the last half of the 6th as they try and add to it.
Did you see the trumpet in Billy's office before the game today? Billy's going to be 60 on Monday, and Al Hurt, hospitalized down in Houston, nothing serious. Sent him a trumpet with some great descriptions about his birthday on Monday. That's the Bob Uecker time. We'll be back as he leaves and Minton comes on right after these messages.
This will be Greg Minton's 1988 Major League debut. An elbow problem had him on the disabled list. Pitched a couple of games in A-ball at Palm Springs on a rehab assignment. They've recently placed Donnie Moore, who has an injured right knee, back on the disabled list. Minton has been reactivated. Winfield at second. Skinner, who singled to finish Krosigk as at first. And Minton's pitch to Santana with 2 out in the 6th is a ball. Minton, of course, was once one of baseball's best relievers. He had a stretch of 3 straight seasons, better than 20 saves, and 2 others where he saved 19 for the Giants in the early 80s.
Great sinker ball.
Bouncing ball, gloved by Howell. There's the force on the toss to McLemore. And the Yankees don't score in the 6th. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station.
May the 30th doubleheader against the Minnesota Twins. First game at 1. Here's the payoff pitch. This is it! There it goes! It's out of here!
"21 years ago today, milestone homer number 500 for Mickey Mantle. Jerry Coleman, who now does the Padre games, on the call that day in May of 1967.
And that number 2 in the coaching box finished a little bit.
One shortstop grounds to another as Santana throws Schofield out to start the California 7th.
Frank Crissetti, and you talk about a thread through this Yankee organization. The Crow probably out trout fishing today out in the Pacific Northwest, but he was there. Ruth's supposed call shot. Joe D's 56-game hitting streak. Roger 61. Mickey 500. The only 2 times, as I recall, Crow ever shook a hand was what you just saw, Mickey in 500, Roger when he hit 61.
Downing has 2 singles and a walk against Tommy John and takes a strike. So having seen Mickey's 500th, it brings us to our trivia question for today, which we'll get to in a pitch or 2. Another strike, 0-2. Here it is. The 536th regular season home run for Mickey Mantle. He hit 18 more in World Series play, and that's a record. Came in September of '68. Who was the pitcher? And I'll give you this much of a hint. It's a prominent baseball name. A guy who himself pitched in a World Series. The 1-2 pitch. In the air to right, Winfield goes back. Dave to the track, turns, leaps, it's gone. Well, Downing has 4 hits in his last 4 official at-bats, plus a walk thrown in. Homered his last time up to win the game last night. He has 2 singles, a walk, and now a homer today.
That has always been a comfortable dimension for a right-handed hitter to hit to. When you're looking and going away, you used to see Mickey from the right side. If they kept pitching him away, step on the pitch and all but place it with power there. But at one time when the bullpens were there before they renovated the stadium, there used to be a wind that would hold balls in that area up, and it would be just one of this kind. Winfield climbs the fence with the best of them, but not this time.
So the homer makes it 5-2. But for want of a well-placed base hit, the Angels could be a whole lot closer. Here's an attempted bunt. It's a foul ball. McLemore trying to test Tommy John. The Angels had runners at first and third and one out. A couple innings back, didn't score. In the last inning, after scoring a run, they had Boone at the plate, runners at second and third and two out, and he didn't come through with a hit. Otherwise, they could have moved to within a run.
You know, with that pull rib cage muscle, Downing has always been the guy that swung as hard as he could when he did swing. But I think with that ribcage pull, he's cut down his swing. Looks like he's a better hitter. Putting the ball in play.
Two runs, 9 hits, no errors for California. 5-8-0 for the Yankees. It's by Paliarulo. McLemore will sprint to second. Well, he can really motor.
There's no doubt if he becomes a leadoff hitter, McLemore, and can build up any kind of on-base percentage, he's a 50-plus stolen base man for the Angels and Cookie Rojas. This was set up on the first bunt that just rolled foul, which kept Paliarulo even with the bag, in fact, 6-8 feet in front of it. He just had no range whatsoever because he was creeping in looking for another possible bunt attempt. Look where he's playing. Not only is he playing in, but tendency with a speedy runner, right-handed, a bunt threat. You're leaning toward home plate and you have absolutely no range, or almost none.
Action now in the Yankee bullpen. And if I'm not mistaken, Righetti has gotten up as Ray pokes one to the right side and Randolph throws him out. 2 down now. Shields is the right-hander and Righetti is the left-hander.
Boy, that's something. The guy holds the major league record for saves with 46. And he's been all but sitting out there doing nothing for 11 straight games. He's barely even gotten up to loosen up. Tommy John taking a little more time now to try and regroup and get his breath with that pitch total.
Wally Joyner swings on the first one, lofts a harmless fly ball to center. Claudell Washington's camped under it, and that'll do it. They settled for one on the opposite field homer by Brian Downing to the last of the 7th. 5-2 New York. You'll see one of these two games coming up next, second half of the doubleheader on NBC. And one more piece of housekeeping, and we remind you we'll select the NBC Miller Lite player of the game when this one's over with. Bottom of the 7th, top of the order for New York.
Before this game started, Rickey Henderson was on a 152 base stealing rampage. That was the pace he's on if he kept up what he's done through the first month and a week or so.
He was nailed by Bob Boone in the first inning after a bunt single today. His 32 easily leads the majors. Last year in an injury-plagued season and without Billy Martin in the dugout, he stole 41. Looks to bunt again, takes a strike on the outside edge. In fact, only the Orioles and the Red Sox, two teams that at times look as if they're participating in a sack race, only those two teams stole fewer bases than the Yankees in '87. He's determined to bunt, fouls this one off. Of course, the Red Sox, Tony, have taken strides toward changing their team image from that one base at a time slugging team to a team that is a better blend of hitting power and speed, with youngsters like Ellis Burks and Brady Anderson can run a bit, and some others.
They're last in the league in home runs. Angels are second last. You talk about Henderson, everybody knows about his 3 100-plus stolen base seasons. But a remarkable thing, I mean, you talked about his leadoff home runs. You look at him the year 85, we played 143 games and scored 146 runs. I mean, he's on a similar pace this year. And this has a chance to be a better hitting team than that year, I think.
2-2.
But as good as this Yankee team is, people question its pitching staff. They have enough depth, especially 81 games in this ballpark, which is very forgiving. Can the disruption factor get him?
Ricky somehow eluded that one.
When he goes into this kind of crouch, there are a lot of teams that try and straighten Ricky up. He tries to distort his strike zone, the quote-unquote new strike zone from midpoint between the armpits and the belt. He crouches like that, leans in, they straighten him up.
Got in on him. He tried to turn away, a check swing roll at a Joyner, and they barely nip him at first.
I'll tell you what,
with Minton covering.
Ricky came very close to Greg Minton's leg. He didn't go for the outside of the bag on that after he got brushed back on that 2-2 pitch. Minton gets over inside of the bag. Watch Henderson. I'll tell you what, Ricky, oh, I won't read his mind, but he came awfully close to that foot. There are a lot of teams brush him back because he considers himself a hot dog. He says it's unstylish. Teams get mad at him, but he bounces right back off the ground and keeps producing big numbers.
Randolph 0 for 2 with a walk. Pops one into shallow center. Armas started back. He comes in now and has it. Time to check with Marv again. An update coming from our studios here in New York. Marv?
All right, Bob, here's an NBA playoff final. Detroit walloped Chicago 101-79. In Chicago, the Pistons, led by Vinnie Johnson, the microwave on fire with 23. Michael Jordan, only 24 points. Pistons lead the best of 7, 2-1. Back to Bob and Tony.
Okay, Marv, here's Mattingly. Grounded out his first time, but since then has homered and doubled. Well, the Bulls got a split in Detroit, and we're happy with that. They come back home, and they score just 79 on their home floor as Detroit goes up 2-1.
Hey, Hubie Brown, the former Knicks coach, said the upset could be Detroit winning it all. With the Celtics and the Lakers, and with Isaiah dishing the ball off now with some additional scoring punch.
What kind of upset would it be if Utah presses their advantage and beats the Lakers?
Yeah, if Eaton keeps standing around that key, threatening for shots, maybe they will have a chance.
A ball and a strike. And here's a smash down the right field line. Fair ball. Mattingly on his way for 2. 3 consecutive extra base hits. Mark the date, May 14th. This might be the day the rampage starts for him.
Well, he's never hit 300 in the month of April in his major league career, and then when he gets through April, when May runs around through early October, he's been about a 360 hitter for his career. You put some of the great names in Yankee history, and I'm talking about the Maggios and the Gehrigs, Ruth, Mantle. You talk about the intensity of focus of the laser beam. Did you see his eyes and head on the ball? Mattingly, his first 4 years, can match the numbers of those great players in a lot of areas. First full 4 years.
Yankees lead at 5-2 as they bat here in the last half of the 7th. Minton, the third Angel pitcher. Checks Mattingly, delivers to Clark, and misses outside 2-0.
He's the RBI man. Bob Boone knows it. First base is open, 2 out. There is a left-hander, Claudell Washington, up next, but you pick your worst poison, and that could be Clark in this situation.
Here's a liner to center. Armas got a late break, and it falls in front of him, and then he bunches the ball. He won't be charged with an error because Clark doesn't advance beyond first, and Mattingly would have scored anyway. And it's 6-2.
We talked about earlier in the ball game how early left field is a sun field, and then when you get toward right center field and that kind of ball, the sun fooled him, didn't get a good jump. He was playing deeply. The glasses looked like they flipped down on him because he was running on his heels. And then he lost it in the seats, which has always been a problem here. The stadium is so high. If you flip your glasses down too soon, which happened to him, you lose it in the seats too late and the ball's in the sun. The timing's got to be perfect with the glasses in this park. I'm surprised they threw him a strike. First base open. I don't think Boone wanted to.
Washington singled his last time. 2-0 to him now. Well, Cookie Rojas trying to figure something out, but his pitching staff is unsettled at best right now. And perhaps his best player, perhaps I say, I don't know if Devon White had gone past Wally Joyner, but certainly one of his two best everyday players, Devon White, out for 6 to 8 weeks. In the basement, 10.5 back. 2-1 pitch.
You know, over the last 5 ball games before today, the pitching has been pretty decent for Cookie Rojas. Their ERA has been just over 2. They've had a real struggle scoring runs. And a club like this, with not a lot of power, especially with White out, as you said, and Joyner not supplying power in the middle of the lineup, they have a difficult time coming back.
Here's a ball squibbed to short. Schofield makes the play, and his throw to McLemore takes care of Clark at second. I didn't mean to say they had a bad pitching staff, but Witt has had a couple of good outings in succession, had struggled before that. They've got Donnie Moore in the DL, Mitten just off, so it is kind of unsettled. 6-2 Yanks. Well, Tony, Marv Albert gave us the update on the Pistons-Bulls game a moment ago. A couple of NBA players in attendance from the Knicks.
Stand up, Sam. I want you. And look, I was all neighborhood on the south side of Milwaukee. I don't know what you were at Syracuse.
I'll stand up.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, what about it?
See what I mean? Here it is. Jump off. Thanks for stopping by, guys.
Louis Orr and Trent Tucker of the Knicks. And I want it known,
yes, sir,
that there are at least 2 NBA players I can post up. Spud Webb and Tyrone Bowes. Well, they keep trying to get the bunts down on Tommy John. Chili Davis rolling one foul.
Who was it you scored a basket on in your high school career?
Foots Walker.
Footsy.
Yeah.
You got in late, threw a three-pointer up, and said, "In your face."
They didn't count for 3 then.
Oh.
Davis will be followed by Armas and Howell here in the 8th. Paliarulo takes care of Chili. You know, at the beginning of the game, we mentioned Tommy John's debut in September of 1963. It's been a quarter-century career in the majors. Just to put that in perspective, last night's Yankee starter, Al Leiter, wasn't born until 1965. The top television series that year was the Beverly Hillbillies. Sidney Poitier won the Academy Award for Best Actor in Lilies of the Field. Patricia Neal won as the actress for HUD. It was the summer of the March on Washington and the rookie year of 20-year-old Tommy John. Swing and a miss by Armas.
The historical perspective you have put it, I can't even say it, put his career in is just really incredible. You have done your homework again.
Well, now let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
As an aficionado of pop music, can you name some of the songs that were on the charts that baseball summer?
I was listening to Mario Lanza music then.
You're a demented man.
Barber of Seville and such.
Well, actually, the Angels were #1 that summer. Not these Angels. They finished 9th under Bill Rigney, but the girl group, the Angels, had a hit with My Boyfriend's Back. Chiffons with He's So Fine, Leslie Gore with It's My Party, and Jan and Dean with Surf City.
It'll be a long run for somebody. Look out for a collision, guys.
Winfield got there.
Boy, he just outran it. He just outran it. He really had a lot longer to come from than did Claudell Washington in center field. When those strides get into gear, Winfield eats up ground like no other right fielder in baseball. Jesse Barfield's outstanding, but he's never had Winfield's running speed, I don't think. They keep replaying it, and he gets standing ovations. George Steinbrenner somewhat made him a folk hero here.
Now the left-handed hitting Howell is due, and Gus Polidor is going to bat for him. In the box score, Howell will be 2 for 3. Although he didn't hit a ball hard off John. He had a brute single in the 5th. And then he had that little pop down the left field line that Henderson somehow misplayed, and it bounced into the stands for a double.
Joel Skinner now trying to nurse Tommy John through this 8th inning, and I think we might see Righetti then. TJ tiring a little bit. You could see it when the last out in the 7th, there was the home run by Downing, but Joyner got a pitch up in the strike zone and hit it deeply to center field. Well, living proof you don't have to throw hard, folks, right here in Tommy John. He'll try and sneak the fastball maybe up to the mid-80s on you once in a while, but it's location, change of speed, and that movement on the ball, and who does it better than he does? He's always had a feel for that.
Swing and a miss, 1 and 2. If he gives them 8 innings, they have to be ecstatic. Last year, the Yankees got only 19 complete games, and their starters lasted through 6 only 64 times. This year, they've already gotten several complete games from Candelaria. Dotson has a couple. When they get Roden back next week, and if Leiter straightens himself out, young man with tremendous potential, who's had a couple of rough outings, this Yankee staff might be better than some of the pessimists thought at the beginning of the season. Polidor with a pinch single, a 2-out hit here in the 8th.
The bench is not a real strong part of Cookie Rojas' Angels team. Hendricks is on the bench with some power. Weiniger a little bit, but then you've got Junior Noboa, Polidor just hit, and Chico Walker, a switch hitter.
Boone was robbed of a hit his last time up on a terrific play by Paliarulo. Took a couple of RBIs away. That might have been the key play of the entire game. It was 5-1, runners at second and third, 2 out. And Boone spanked one to the left side. It could have been a hit to cut the deficit to 5-3, and Pags came up with a terrific play.
And a couple of plays that weren't made by the Angels. Johnny Ray for one. A hard shot to Joyner at first. It may have kept an inning alive. They're starting to heat up a little bit more quickly now in that Yankee bullpen, as he is barely throwing the ball up there 75 miles an hour. Righetti throwing the ball a lot harder. That shields the right-hander also.
Down the left field line, and it's foul.
You put a radar gun on that last pitch of Tommy John, you might have gotten 60 miles per hour on it.
We welcome those of you who had been watching the Cub-Houston game. Bob Costas and Tony Kubek. Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. Yanks have homers from Mattingly and Winfield. Mattingly also has a couple of doubles. They lead 6-2 behind Tommy John in the 8th. And the pitch to Bob Boone is lofted to right. Winfield calls and takes it. This was probably John's last inning. He allowed the Angels just 2 runs on 11 hits. We mentioned that he broke in '63. This song was on the charts.
Do-wop, do-wop.
Please, Tony.
Remember them well. The Chiffons.
A couple of innings ago, we posed this question. Tony, you want to offer a guess before we reveal the answer? A right-hander.
Jim Lonborg.
Bingo.
Oh.
Jim Lonborg at the old Yankee Stadium. Late in the year 1968, 536th and last. At that time, when he retired, Mantle ranked 3rd on the all-time home run list behind Ruth and Mays, and of course was subsequently passed by Henry Aaron, Frank Robinson, Harmon Killebrew, Reggie Jackson.
You know, one of the controversial home runs that Mickey hit was hit off the last 30-game winner, Dennis McLain, and you perhaps know what number home run that was. I don't remember.
That was 535. The second
some
to last.
said, in fact, McLain admitted it, said, here it is, hit it right down the middle, and Mickey did. They're showing Memorial Park and a lot of the happy happenings around here. Friend of Billy's, and of course mine, I played with him, is going to have something sad happen to him by Monday, and that's Joe Pepitone, first baseman for the Yankees, who apparently is going to have to spend 6 months in jail at Rikers Island. And kind of drug charged, so Gus Polidor comes in, so the old Pepe's got his life straightened out. Finally, this will. He's quite a player. Clyburn with a little sinker and a slider. Doesn't overpower you.
Winfield will be his first hitter, followed by Paliarulo and Skinner in the last half of the 8th. Yankees leading 6-2. Steve Jacobson of Newsday here in New York, excellent columnist. There's the final on the game many of you saw. Nepper beat Nipper. Steve Jacobson had a funny line about the ongoing battles between Dave Winfield and George Steinbrenner. Chopper to short, Schofield, face high hop, almost pulled Joyner off the bag, but Winfield is retired. Jacobson wrote that George Steinbrenner, like Mr. Dithers, keeps wanting to turn Dave Winfield into Dagwood Bumstead and run his finger through the pencil sharpener. And you can sort of see George Steinbrenner. I think even many of his friends could see him as a Mr. Dithers kind of boss, blustering sometimes, affectionate at other times.
Yeah, that was some triumvirate here. You're talking about 3 complex personalities in the same organization. Billy, Reggie, and George. Wow.
Yep.
Born for turmoil, those guys. Reggie, I guess, had a cancel. Was it June 11th? They were going to have a day for him, but I guess there was a conflict. They're trying to reschedule. Apparently, they're going to retire, what, his number? Has that been settled upon yet?
I guess eventually they will set number 44 aside for Reggie.
Maybe, what, 14 Yankee numbers retired then?
Well, let's count them.
Well, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey, Bill Dickey, Roger Maris, Phil Rizzuto, Thurman Munson, Whitey Ford, Elston Howard, Casey.
There you go.
There you go.
8 twice for both Dickey and for Yogi, right?
Boy, is he taking a lot of time on the mound now, isn't he?
3-1 pitch, finally. Hit well to center field. Armas drops the shades and makes the catch.
Some thought Tony's career was finished when he was released and had a bunch of injuries, knee, elbow. Red Sox released him. This guy who led the league in home runs one year, big RBI man, always struck out a lot, never walked much, but very, very dynamic hitter if you make a mistake. He just battled his way back, played at Edmonton, and they gave him a job. Playing regularly now with Devon Whiteout. You can see what he thinks about the sun with the glasses down even before the ball's put in play.
Fastball inside to Skinner. In the 9th, the Angels are scheduled to send up Schofield, Downing, and McLemore. Breaking ball missed, 2-0.
Earlier on, we had that play where the ball bounced in. We thought it hit, we speculated what the rule was if it had hit Ricky Henderson's glove, and it's the same. If it deflects it, goes under something, or bounces in, it's still the ground rule double. Clarify for that for you. Steve Horn, our crack stat man, ferreted out the information.
Skinner waiting on Clyburn's pitch. Thought he had the walk, but Jim Evans says no. It's strike 1, 3-1.
Be interesting to see if Righetti does come on. What kind of hand? This crowd's been pretty much silent a good part of this game.
Well, this is a confidence builder for Skinner. He gets into the game because Slot pulled a groin muscle, and he delivers a couple of singles. He hadn't played in a while.
Shortstop, Rafael Santana.
And to show you what a mind game it can be, neither one of the base hits was exactly scorched. You can hit 2 balls as well and just have a couple of ground outs to the shortstop or second baseman and feel just as badly about yourself as when the day started. But now there's going to be a little bounce in Skinner's step.
Well, you're going to have to rest, obviously, Slot, and maybe Skinner becomes, while they're resting the pulled groin, maybe they're going to rest him through this, and Skinner may now have to play a little while. You know, you wonder why with Skinner there, why Joyner's even bothering to hold him out, leaving that gap open. It's one of my pet peeves. You might as well get behind and cut down the gap. Is he going anywhere with 2 outs and Santana up? If he is, he does you a favor.
Breaking ball is plunked into right field, but it's not going to drop. Chili Davis gets there to make the catch. So we'll move to the 9th. Likely to see Righetti to protect a 4-run lead. Quick check of the scoreboard. A late afternoon game at Fenway Park, and behind Roger Clemens against Bankhead of Seattle, the Sox lead 1-0. Bankhead is significant because he's the guy they got from the Royals for Danny Tartabull, and that's a deal that doesn't look so good right now.
Just called up from the minor leagues after some problems with his arm. Cleveland 2, Milwaukee 1 in the 4th.
Chico Walker, number 10.
Well, I was wrong. I thought that after 8 innings, and there's that Houston-Chicago final again, that after 8 innings, Billy Martin would have said enough for Tommy John and given Dave Righetti an opportunity to work for the first time in almost 2 weeks. But no, John will go after the complete game.
Well, over the last half-dozen years, as Righetti continues to eat up along with Steve Shields, Shields was in that deal also until he got up to Seattle in that Bankhead deal for Tartabull. Shields got hit by that line drive off the bat of Kirby Puckett last April. Now he's battled back.
Chico Walker is pinch hitting here for Schofield. Randolph takes care of him. The Major League Baseball game of the week has been brought to you by Miller Genuine Draft. Cold filtered draft beer. It's as real as it gets. By AC Delco. Automotive parts that don't just fit, they match. By today's Howard Johnson. We're changing a lot of minds. And by Honda Power Equipment. Honda engineering makes the difference.
Angels team in the midst of a transition. I want to remind you one more time. Ron Darling, Mike Krukow. Les Straker, he was disabled for a while this year against Frank Tanana. Is Steve Garvey working one of our games today?
He's finished.
He's finished.
He worked the Houston-Chicago game with Jay Randolph. The 1-1 to Downing. And here's another well-hit ball toward the gap in left center field. The Angels may lose today, but it won't be Downing's fault. He has 4 base hits and a walk. 2 singles, now a double, a home run and a walk. And he homered to win last night's game.
He's really one of the few off some of those Gene Mock teams. And again, Mike Port, the general managers, along with the patience of Gene Autry, the owner, they're in a transition period. You know, Rod Carew gone a few years ago, Reggie Jackson gone, Bobby Grich, Doug DeCinces. They're making a lot of changes, moving in a lot of kids. They've got a chance to have a nucleus. Well, they have a nucleus of a good pitching staff if it stays healthy, and some speed.
John is closing in now on a 12-hit complete game.
See, through 8 innings, unofficially, the Angels had stranded 9. They've had their chances, but this is not atypical of a Tommy John game, because many times, because you get a lot of singles off him, doesn't walk many, can get the double play, he ends up pitching high hit total games and stranding a lot of runners.
2-1 now to McLemore. The Angels have had at least 1 hit in every inning. Three balls and a strike. By my count, John has issued 2 walks, and he has struck out 2.
Check.
Full count. Well, we have to pick an MVP. Mattingly's been the hitting star.
How about TJ?
From the Yankees side.
TJ sure going to be considered. especially if he gets a complete game.
What about Downing? The 3-2 pitch is hit through the box. Let's see if they send Downing home. Stubing stops him at third. No point in taking any chances. Washington fires the throw to the plate.
I think you're going to see Righetti, so that Righetti, who has struggled and hasn't pitched for 11 days, has some breathing room now. You know,
here's the interesting thing.
You got a four-run lead, but you don't want to get him in here when that tying run is at home plate and he needs some breathing room.
Had Righetti or any other reliever, and it is going to be Righetti, had Dave started this inning with a 6-2 lead, he would not have been eligible for a save. But he comes in now with 2 men on, so it is a save situation. And the ovation for TJ. Here comes Righetti for his first appearance since May 2nd. Except for a stretch on the disabled list in 1984 with a cut finger. This is the longest that Dave Righetti, as a member of the active roster, has gone without making an appearance.
Billy Martin and Art Fowler would like to see him use all 4 of his pitches, as Billy and Art, to Billy's right, say he isn't basically just the kind of guy like Goose who threw 98-mile-an-hour heat. His fastball hasn't been as good. It started last year. Not as consistent, but he does have a slider, curve, and changeup, and they'd like to see him use all 4 of those pitches. It would not be uncommon right now for him to have a good fastball, but overthrow and maybe have a little wildness after the long layoff, and we'll find out.
So, runners at first and third. 1 out on the 9th. 6-2 Yankees. Johnny Ray, who's 1 for 3 plus a walk. He had a double back in the 4th. Takes a strike from Righetti.
And if he lost his fastball, the first pitch didn't show it. He came right at him.
They can put 1 more man on. Joyner becomes the tying run at the plate, and Davis is behind him, 1-1.
You can see he's, you know, Billy has a purpose for doing a lot of things. He's not impetuous as you think. And I think he wants to get Rags a little bit heated up, come out and throw a little harder and get him a little meaner. And he's got a little fire in his eyes after the first 2 pitches.
Well, he was behind that one. 1-2.
That might have been the hard slider.
Looked like it. Ray's a very tough guy to strike out. One of the major's best contact hitters. We mentioned this is Righetti's first appearance since May 2nd. He's looking for his first save since April 19th. He strikes Johnny Ray out, a difficult thing to do.
Ray hitting right-handed, coming in was .429, but only 2 of his 24 RBIs came from this right side. Look at it like a fastball that had a little sail on it. But he threw 3 fastballs that had a little mustard on it.
Joyner will try and give Davis a chance. He takes ball 1. Downing at third, McLemore at first, 2 out on the 9th.
Ooh, he dropped down on him. You know, that is, to me, the closing piece of the puzzle for the Yankees. People felt that they could run away with it. Not so sure now with Detroit playing, Milwaukee getting in gear. Toronto appears to be starting to play a little bit better. Boston will get better with their starting staff, and they'll hit the thing. But if Righetti does start closing games out for him, he's struggled the last 4 or 5 times out, it could be the final piece for the Yankees. It might mean you say goodbye to the rest of the division, but he's got to prove it over a long period of time.
I think the division's too good for anybody to run away with it.
Detroit's awfully good, and they get some great chemistry under Sparky.
Well, he walks Joyner on 4 pitches to bring the tying run to the plate.
That is the working room that Billy Martin wanted to allow for Righetti. Now there isn't much left, is there?
Here comes George Hendrick. Hendrick was at the plate with 2 out and nobody on last night against Guante. Had a pitch hit him on his left hand. The Yankees contended that it struck the bat and not his hand. The umpire sent him down to first, and Downing followed with the home run off the foul pole.
Ladies and gentlemen, batting for Davis, number 25.
So the veteran Hendrick. Then with Oakland and San Diego and Cleveland and Pittsburgh and St. Louis.
Well, we talked about the Angels having stranded 9 through 8. They've got 3 more sitting there. You look at some of their averages with men in scoring position or on base, and they are not very attractive. Ray's been good, a couple of others, but Wally Joyner has struggled with men on base. They just haven't been able to get the timely hits to help their pitching staff out.
So Hendrick bats for Chili Davis. And takes a ball. You know, it's interesting that Rojas would yank Davis. He's a switch hitter. He hit over 20 homers last year for the Giants.
And his production on the right side hasn't been bad. He's got a home run and 9 RBIs, 2 home runs and 12 from the left side.
1-1. Bases loaded, 2 out, top of the 9th, 6-2 New York. Righetti to Hendrick. Off the outside corner, it's 2-1. Armas is on deck. Armas had a homer last night. He has 2 hits today. If Righetti loses Hendrick, it really gets interesting. The 2-1 pitch. He popped it up. Santana wants it. The Yankees win it.
Well, Hendrick was hitting .375 with runners in scoring position. Davis just .229, and that's one of the reasons for the move.
Righetti stops the string of 4 successive failures in save situations. Notches his 5th save of the year. John the winner 2-0. Petrie the Angels starter and loser 2-3. Well, in a monument to indecision, we have named 3 MVPs. It's sort of like hockey's 3 stars system. We'll go with Brian Downing of the Angels, who had 4 hits and a walk. Don Mattingly, who had a couple of doubles and a homer for the Yankees. And Tommy John, who went 8 1/3, gets the win, allowing 2 runs and 13 hits. They were well spaced, as we say in the trade. He scattered 13 hits. Stay tuned for the second half of the doubleheader. For now, for John Filippelli, our producer, Andy Rosenberg, our director, and Statman Steve Horn, I'm Bob Costas. So long.